Hello everybody and welcome back to a brand new video. We are going to be doing some analysis on the Battle of Bakhmut, as there's not been a whole lot of, as there hasn't been really any towns that have been captured, or really any major advances other than in Bakhmut, major updates, major advances. One of those biggest ones is the fact that Ukraine has allegedly, and it appears to be true, that they have retreated the west of the Bakhmutska River, and now all of this land east in the eastern portion of Bakhmut is now no longer occupied. Apparently, some very pro-Russian sources are saying that there are units abandoned and trapped on the eastern side of the river, as pretty much all of the bridges are unusable, have been destroyed. But I cannot confirm whether or not there are still Ukrainians trapped on the eastern side of the river. And I am also unsure if Russian forces are actually, if their positions are on the river line itself, if they have actually moved up to the river line and are under full control of the eastern side of the river, which is why I have not moved the front line up to the eastern side of the river. But it appears that there are no more Ukrainians on the eastern side of the river, and now they have retreated across the western side of the river, as well as a lot of bridges and dams have been destroyed. We can see here that this dam slash bridge was blown up on the 25th. This was just destroyed today. And this railroad bridge right here was also destroyed today. So pretty much all of the bridges in and around Bakhmut have been destroyed, as well as this bridge over the canal, which I talked about last episode. I can confirm that that has indeed been destroyed, meaning that Ukraine only has one supply route, one logistics road, one MSR, main supply route. They have one left. They have one dirt road that leads from the very western edge of Bakhmut to this development in Chesov Yar. So Bakhmut is almost completely encircled. They have one supply route left. So the situation is very dire, and there are rumors and reports that Ukrainian forces are withdrawing from the city entirely. Although officials from the 93rd Mechanized Division of Ukraine said that the fighting continues for the city, but I'm not sure. But it's hard to trust Ukrainian government and military sources, as it is Russian ones, as it's pretty much all propaganda for their side. But it would make sense to withdraw from Bakhmut at this point. It is pretty much inevitably going to be under Russian control, as there is just no way you can supply that many troops with just one supply route. So it appears that the Battle of Bakhmut is all but won for the Russians. Obviously, they still need to clear out the city. There are most likely going to be Ukrainians. Even if they withdraw, there are still going to be Ukrainians who remain within the city. And apparently they're going to try to hold on to Bakhmut for as long as possible, though we'll see if that is the case. But it appears that the Battle of Bakhmut is nearing its end here. Although I said something similar to that a few weeks ago, so we'll have to see. This battle's gone on for a very, very long time. And we have been talking about Bakhmut for months and months now, so this battle appears to be very long and drawn out. I can't wait to read history books about this whenever they come out. It's going to be very fascinating. But it appears that Wagner forces have proven themselves in battle to be quite effective, as they are the main reason as to why Russia has been so successful on this front, as it's mostly been due to Wagner private military personnel. And that is going to do it pretty much for the frontline update. There have been some attacks near Volodar. There have been some more attacks near Volodar, and apparently near Avdiivka. There have been some attacks here, but other than that, not really a whole lot other than Bakhmut, of course. And I am planning on adding more destroyed bridge markers across the whole front line to get a better picture of the supply routes and what is and isn't possible to, what roads and routes are not possible to supply troops with. And I might add more of these sort of logistics routes in the future as well. But we're going to move on to the headlines, and the United States is planning on sending bridge layers, or bridge launchers as they're called in this article. The United States has announced a new $400 million military aid package for Ukraine on Friday that for the first time includes armored vehicles that can launch bridges, allowing troops to cross rivers or other gaps as Russian and Ukrainian forces remain entrenched on opposite sides of the Dnieper River. So, I'm not sure if these bridge layers are going to be enough to cross the Dnieper near Kherson. It's possible that is the case, but I am unsure of the capability of these vehicles. The armored vehicle launched bridge is a portable 60-foot, 18-meter, fully metal bridge that is carried on top of a tank body, providing that system can make it easier for Ukrainian troops to cross the rivers to get to Russian forces. So it's 60 feet long. I don't think it might be enough, because these bridges across the Dnieper are destroyed in Kherson. So that might be enough to, use the bridge layers on those destroyed bridges, and you'll be able to cross armored vehicles using these destroyed bridges, sort of almost pseudo repairing them, I guess is a way to call it. But, that is very risky, as it's just one bridge. It's a very easy it would be very easy for Russian forces to destroy the vehicles on the bridge with, artillery, rockets, drones, and, anti-tank missiles. But this is very useful equipment, not necessarily over just the Dnieper, but in general. We just talked about how many bridges have been destroyed, so having the ability to create new ones like that very easily would be a huge help to the Ukrainians. So it is a very, very important that they receive that if they wish to continue on the fight, and maybe even push back the Russians in their supposed spring offensive. We're going to move over down to Iran, where on the 28th of February, the United States said that Iran could make one nuclear bomb in about 12 days. Apparently, Iran has been ramping up its uranium enrichment for nuclear weapons, and apparently they could test a nuclear bomb soon, or they could have the ability to create one. as well as the United States has imposed new sanctions against Iranian petroleum and petrochemical trade on the 2nd of March. The United States imposed sanctions on firms it said had transported or sold Iranian petroleum or petrochemical products in violation of restrictions, including 2 companies based in China. The sanctions are part of a Washington push to curb Iranian oil smuggling and comes as efforts to revive the 2015 nuclear deal have stalled in part due to increasingly strained ties between the Islamic Republic and the West. Also, Iran has discovered a large lithium deposit. Iran has announced the discovery of a large deposit of lithium, a key component of batteries for electric vehicles and electronic devices, the state media reported on Saturday. For the first time in Iran, a lithium reserve has been discovered in Hamadan, in the west of the country. The official from the Ministry of Industry, Mines and Trade said. So apparently 8.5 million tons of lithium has been discovered. So Iran is not just rich in oil, but apparently also lithium, which would help it a lot as the world is moving towards renewable energy. It will help Iran stay relevant and help them keep their strategic posture. Because without oil, Iran would be in a lot of trouble. But if they can move over to oil and lithium exports, that would secure them and their position in the Middle East. The G20 was held in New Delhi, and there was apparently no consensus on Ukraine, as well as the United States and Russia held the highest level talks since the invasion. Antony Blinken and Sergei Lavrov talked briefly, the Secretary of State and Foreign Ministry, so the top diplomats, spoke briefly on Thursday in the highest level in-person talks between the two countries since Russia's invasion of Ukraine, but there is no indication of any movement towards easing of tensions between their two nations. So the G20 was held in New Delhi, and nothing about Ukraine was really discussed or talked about. I'm not sure if really anything was agreed upon. So the New Delhi, but it was held, the G20, very important talks were held in New Delhi, though I'm not sure very much development in terms of really anything occurred there. We are going to move on to East Asia, with Xi Jinping and Lukashenko calling for the soonest peace in Ukraine at a Chinese and Belarusian summit held in Beijing on the 1st of March. They called for the soonest possible peace deal for Ukraine at talks in Beijing on Wednesday, the Belarusian state news agency reported Belta. Their summit brought together 2 of the foreign leaders on whom Russian President Vladimir Putin is most reliant for support as his army struggles to achieve the goals of its year-old invasion. Belta said that they issued a joint statement in which they expressed deep concern about the development of the armed conflict in the European region and extreme interest in the soonest possible establishment of peace. Belarus and China are interested in averting any escalation of the crisis and ready to make efforts to restore regional peace and order. So this comes after the Chinese Foreign Ministry issued a 12-point peace proposal that we covered in the last episode. So it appears that China and Belarus both want peace in Ukraine. Obviously, the war in Ukraine has disrupted global supply lines and the global economy quite a bit and has negatively affected Belarus a lot, as Belarus has obviously very close ties to Russia. And so it would make sense why they would want to end the war as soon as possible. And China as well, as the United States is claiming that China might send over lethal aid to Russia, such as artillery and artillery shells, ammo, and all this weaponry. Allegedly, they might do that. So China is probably trying to prove that those accusations are false, if they are false, which they might not be, but we don't know exactly. This is just what the United States is saying. But it's very interesting that China and Belarus want peace in Ukraine, although it does make sense, as these countries rely heavily on a stable. Their economies rely on global stability a lot, so it would make sense why they would want peace. It's been going on for a year now, and the sooner the peace, the better for everybody, not just China and Belarus, but the whole world in general. The United States and South Korea are going to continue on with their yearly, I believe it is yearly, joint exercises. In spite of North Korean threats, North Korea, of course, we've talked about this, that they launched, missiles over the Sea of Japan, and they threatened South Korea, saying that there would be consequences if these military drills went on. But of course, the United States and South Korea are not going to listen to those threats, and the drills are carry on. The military exercises are being conducted anyways. And we are going to move on to the United States, where the White House held a cybersecurity conference. The White House laid forward a document that laid the groundwork for a new cybersecurity plan in order to increase, cybersecurity. An ambitious and wide-ranging White House cybersecurity plan released Thursday, which calls for bolstering protections on critical sectors and making software companies legally liable when their products don't meet basic standards. Obviously, in the 21st century, cybersecurity is one of the most important things for a nation. This sounds like I'm about to transition into like a VPN ad, but I'm not. But it is just generally important for individuals, for nations, for companies, obviously in the digital era. And also, on the 1st of March, the United States was seeking allies' backing for possible Chinese sanctions over Ukraine. The United States is sounding out close allies about the possibility of imposing new sanctions on China if Beijing provides military support for Russia for its war in Ukraine, according to 4 U.S. officials and other sources. So it appears that as the war continues and drags out, so do the ramifications and the worsening of tensions between China, Russia, the United States, European Union, and whatnot. Now, in more minor news, the quote-unquote Havana syndrome was not caused by a foreign adversary. The Havana syndrome is a mysterious ailment that was first reported by United States Embassy officials in the Cuban capital in 2016 and included migraines, nausea, memory lapses, and dizziness. About 1,500 cases have now been reported by U.S. government agencies and departments, including some from this year. So, in Cuba, there are United States citizens and people who have this mysterious sort of illness called the Havana syndrome, and the United States has concluded that it was not some kind of biological attack from a foreign adversary. So that's good news for the United States and for the United States and Cuban relations. As well as Nigeria held its presidential election, where Tinubu is now the president-elect, and I believe that is all for this episode of the Global Awareness Report. Thank you for watching. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. If you found this video informative, if you have any kind of constructive criticism, please leave it in the comments. I want to make these videos as best as I can make them. So thank you for watching, and I will hopefully see you in the next one.